right, hello, and welcome to Wednesday in Westeros. I'm Todd A., and with me is Emily Kelly, first of her name, maker of video games, mother of cats, Khaleesi of fan theories, the get-turned, ruler of her condo. Emily,
hi. Hello. I should say more queenly voice.
It has been a bad weekend for Irish people.
I know, man. I was like, and I don't really even care about boxing that much. Like, I used to watch boxing or like MMA, like more as a teenager, as a young person, because I come from a family of boxers. But so I'm at this sorry, this is a tangent before we go off on our tangents. But I was at this really super fancy event for my grandfather because he was a professor at Mort Park College here in LA for like 34 years, and so it was their 50th. So we're like at the Ronald Reagan Library. I'm wearing this floor-length dress, and I'm just like totally like. People are giving speeches and stuff, and I'm like watching people's periscopes of the live stream of the fight on my phone, like sitting at this table. And so, yeah, I was really super. I'm like, why are you like this, Emily? But no, it's fine. I mean, whatever.
Well, if it was an Irish grandpa, he probably would have approved. So
Reynolds. So yeah, but he doesn't. He was just kind of minding his own business.
Yeah, and Reagan too. He's another Irishman, I guess.
Indeed.
Anyway,
sorry.
I was typing. I mean, I led us on that tangent. I'm sorry.
What are we here to talk about anyway?
Yeah, we're here to talk about what was this episode called? The Dragon and the Wolf. Game of Thrones, season 7, episode 7. The end of this season, probably the last episode we get for
like 10 years.
Oh, so upset about that. I was literally typing, and obviously we'll get to the thing later, but I was literally typing. I was taking notes like kind of quickly as I was watching it, and I typed, overall, it's a very typical final episode for the season. I thought there'd be more cliffhangers, and then right then, the crazy shit happened, and so now it's like, why can't season 8 be here by the end of the year?
I just feel like there's just not a lot of like cliffhangers left either.
Right.
Yeah. Like almost every storyline has been wrapped up.
Right. Yeah. Except the big one, I guess. Yeah. So with that, like right when you and I got on the line, you said your jaw was on the floor for most of this episode. And I told you I would just maybe I'll just take you through it, and you just tell me where your jaw was on the floor, or you take me through it with that. I mean, were you like from? Was there anything unexpected, I guess, in the dragon pit scene? Was there anything that was shocking you there?
I actually was really shocked and it was like typical, like why don't I learn my lessons about stuff? But when they do this whole thing, at first I was like, shit, like the thing isn't gonna move or like do anything, like, oh my god, this was all for nothing. And so then finally it was honestly it was like more of an effective demonstration than I ever thought it was like gonna be. So I was kind of shocked by that, like, oh my god, this was super legit. Like, it tried to kill them, they chopped it in half, and it's moved. Like, Qyburn was very interested in it. Like, I was surprised that it worked as well as it did, especially when Cersei's like, okay, cool, like, we're gonna do this, like, truce, like, F this thing. But then, of course, in typical Cersei Game of Thrones fashion, she's like, but this John thing.
Well, you're totally right. That was a way more effective demonstration than I thought too. I mean, this whole scheme has sounded so suspect to me from the beginning, but that was really terrifying. I, for one, bought Euron's like cowardice in that moment.
Yeah, he's like, pussy.
And then I also loved that Cersei had that kind of card to play, that loyalty card, and or maybe not loyalty, but fealty, to ask Jon not to take up arms against her. I thought that was great. I do wonder why, I guess what was revealed in a later scene is that she probably knew he would turn her down, by that point. I kind of think, like, once we got that Jaime Cersei scene later, that we figured out, like, oh, she's actually sort of planned this with Euron, and maybe knew she could corner Jon, and
like, she had no intention, really.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. One of the questions I wrote down was, why even bring Theon to this parlay? That was a very confusing moment for me.
I don't know. I just think, like, Jon and like I've said, John and Danny are like perfect cinnamon rolls. And I think they were like, they would be, they would feel bad if they didn't bring him. Like, they were just like, why not? I guess, like, okay, Theon, you can come too.
Well, and then the big question that I asked you also right before we started rolling was why does John dress like it's freezing everywhere? It's like he looks like me in the early '90s trying to be a grunge rocker.
With his hair slicked back. Yeah, winter is here, so it would be colder. And then when we saw, obviously, like later in the episode, like it legit started to snow in King's Landing, which it has not snowed like since the last winter, like 10 years previous or 15 years previous. I don't remember the exact date, but it was before Bran. I remember Bran was a summer baby. And so he's like 15 years old at this point. So it was before that. Anyway, so I think it's funny. But I'm kind of noticed that about their costumes in general. That Brienne dresses in a lot of layers with her armor. That even Cersei, all of her dresses are long sleeved with fur, armor, like all this kind of stuff. But it is kind of funny that he's like, it looks very beautiful. And like, I'm sure they filmed it like in Spain or Croatia or something like this beautiful tropical place. And then they're like in all this like IKEA rugs, just like hanging out.
Some assistant is emerging out of the pit every 5 minutes to wipe the sweat off his face.
Yeah, like spritzing them a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because I think he's kind of a little dude, and I think that
he's only like 5'7" or 5'8". Yeah, he's like my height.
Right.
Which is fine. That's why I love that joke in the last episode where Cersei or Danny goes, he's too small for me. I'm like, sick burn.
I agree. So you have spoken on previous episodes this year of your like anxiety that you felt through different episodes. And I definitely felt that when Tyrion went to talk to Cersei alone. So did your dog.
Jesse, it's okay, baby.
Yeah,
she's very concerned. She was anxiety too.
Yeah. I was very scared for those left in the dragon pit, and I didn't understand like why. I don't know. It just didn't make sense to me. Just throwing that out there in case you had any reaction to that at all.
No, not really. I mean, I was more concerned like for Tyrion. I was like, holy shit, he's not coming back.
Oh,
like,
really?
He's gonna die. I just liked it. I liked that it was like, they got to have a little breather. And I loved the speech between all of them of like, did you never learn to lie? Or like, have you ever thought about lying? I mean, the writing this season, for whatever it's worth, has been so good in callbacks and kind of like subtleness of stuff. Because for me, there was that whole, she was trying to say like, your Ned was, an honorable man, like his word meant something. And I would assume that his son's word also means something. And I think that John was both like, yes, my word means something because I already pledged myself to Daenerys, but that he's also, it was really, when he gives the speech to Theon of you can be both, was so good, obviously, later in the episode where you can, he is both the best qualities of Stark and Targaryen. That he got, that Ned might not have been his father, but he got all the great qualities of Ned, and that stays with him, obviously. I really loved that part.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up about Jon and Theon, because that was. I mean, I knew it was too early, obviously, when they met on the beach earlier, this year, several episodes ago. But that was kind of the moment I was hoping for between them, of like a little tough love of these two brothers that were neither
not brothers,
but also neither was a legitimate son of that father,
Yeah, no, it was really good. And I think the way that they did it was really nice, like just the cinematography and stuff too, but I like that too.
I also like it because they brought up Jon Arryn in this episode, and there's that moment between the two, not sons of Ned Stark. And one thing that does not get brought up enough is that Ned was so invested in John Aaron's death because Ned was a ward of John Aaron and actually
him and Robert both.
Yeah. So like why Theon turned into this total piece of shit just for being a ward and pretending like he was a captive and all that. It's like, no, that's how Ned Stark grew up. That's how Robert did. I mean, not that Robert was a very honorable person, but you know, it can work out for some people, I guess. Yeah. So while we're talking about Theon, you had mentioned, you know, there aren't many cliffhangers left. And for me, the Theon Yara cliffhanger, I could care less about. What's your take on that? I mean, Theon has this brutal fight with another Ironborn on the beach.
I love that fight because I mean, you feel bad for him. You're like, dude, just like stay down a little bit. Then when the guy tries to kick him in his non-present genitalia, and he smiles, that's like one of my favorite parts because it was just like so, you know, Theon's whole thing of taking what has happened to him and using it as his strength. And I think we're finally going to get to use, or finally he is going to get to use this trauma and this, you know, will to survive beyond himself. Finally, we're going to get to see him use it in something freaking constructive of saving his sister. And I don't really know what part they still have to play, but obviously we learned later in the episode that Euron is a faker and he is sailing to Essos right now to pick up the Golden Company. And so maybe there's still a part for the younger Greyjoys to play in an epic sort of sea battle against Euron eventually. But other than that, like, I don't really know what they're still doing here.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we don't really talk about like, well, I don't know. We talk about you know, fan theories for sure. I was about to say like spoilers, and it's not like a spoiler. I don't know what's going to happen. So I'm sorry. I started a complicated preface for my own to like try to do a spoiler alert. And then I was like, wait, it's not actually a spoiler. It's just a fan theory. Okay. I did see a fan theory about Euron being the Valonqar. He is actually the younger brother, of course, of what's his name? Theon's dad.
Oh, Balon.
That he killed. Balon. And so he could be the younger brother that kills Cersei. And to me, you know, when I texted that to Taylor after I watched this video today and said, this is the only thing that justifies Euron's continued presence on the show.
Other than he's just really fun and handsome.
But he's such a like out of left field character. Like, do we really need to like, you know, introduce him at this point? And I don't know. I like you know, what happens later in the episode when we find that he is going to get the Golden Company, that he will return and be king is kind of like, oh yeah, that, you know, that all kind of fits with the logic of the show. But I do wonder if that's a good theory, if he will be the little brother that kills Cersei, which I'm referring, of course, to Maggie the Frog's prophecy where she says the Valonqar will put his two hands around her throat and strangle her.
Sure.
And earlier in the season, when Euron was introduced, he said, I have two good hands.
That's true.
Which we kind of thought was a cut to Jaime, but may have been planting the seed. Anyway.
I want to talk more about Jaime towards the end.
Okay. Should we jump to Littlefinger?
Yes!
Okay.
Oh my God.
So, okay, so jaw on the floor for this part?
Yeah, because I was like, so, you know, they're playing his little game, and I'm like, oh, this is great. Like, this is a fun game. Thank you for introducing us to this. And so, yeah, when they go ahead.
When you say that about this is a fun game, were you thinking that just in that like earlier scene with just Littlefinger and Sansa?
Yeah, just Littlefinger and Sansa. And so he's like kind of running through it, you know, running through it with her. And I think that's really stupid of him. Like, I think I think like a lot of people underestimated Sansa and her intelligence and her strategic sort of mind. And I think this was his own undoing. And maybe she had an inkling about him, you know, for a long time. Obviously she saw him murder her aunt and all these things, but I think it wasn't until then where she really like the wheels clicked into place to start turning of like, what's the worst thing I can think about him? And oh my God. And it was just such a beautifully like, the setup of the shots in the scene. I don't know if they did this intentionally, but at the big table where Sansa and Bran was sitting, on Sansa's right, there's an open space. And I don't know if it's reserved like for Jon, but in my mind, I was like, that's for Arya. Like I really wanted her to come into the room and, you know, Sansa's going to be like, you know why I called you here, Arya, or like something like that. And Arya will just kind of like step up and take a seat at the table with them. And I really wanted this shot, like this pullback shot of the 3 Stark siblings. I really wanted it, and they didn't give it to me. There was another opportunity too near the end where Sansa and Arya are like talking about, you know, giving quotes about their dad and their house. So I really wanted that. Anyway, so yeah, when Sansa, when Sansa,
I love you bring that up because I actually had to rewind. Like the first time Bran spoke, I had not even seen him sitting at the table.
Oh, really? I automatically noticed it.
Or I didn't notice it was Bran. So when I heard that voice, I was like, wait, what?
Where is he? Yeah, he's sitting. He's perpetually sitting. Sorry.
I thought he was in the back of the room, like he was like surprise witness. He comes rolling in, you know.
I know, actually. I love it. No, when Sansa starts of the charges of murder and treason, how do you plead? And there's a pause, and I just said Lord Baelish, and she said Lord Baelish, and I just go, oh, I like hit Peter. Like I'm like, yeah, I always hit Peter when things happen like in the show. And it was so yeah, I mean, you have it in the show notes that it was really weird, but like I thought this was super awesome because this was like the way, like this is kind of the only way he could have gone out, is he would have never let himself get into a trap like this otherwise.
Right.
And so this was so stokeable for me. Like I just fucking loved it.
His whole like trying to wiggle out of it was the only thing he knows how to do, which is like get her alone so that he can, you know, worm tongue his way into like telling her he's right or something like that.
Yeah, no, they did it obviously the super correct way. And finally, Bran was useful for something.
And so was Royce.
I always liked Royce. I thought he was cool. He's really cool in the books too. But yeah, he was finally just like the head shake of like, you ain't going nowhere. But this was such a great. Yeah, this was just such a relief in his armor. Yeah, it's cold. You gotta like players, man. No, this was such a cool end for Littlefinger. Like, and it was just a perfect, you know, it's one of those like poetic justices, like that he led Ned into a trap in largely the same way. And the fact that he was killed by that same dagger, you know, it's beautiful. It was perfect. I
guess one of the reasons my reaction was this is the weirdest way it would go down was because since the introduction of that dagger and Arya's reappearance at Winterfell, I really thought it would be sort of sneakier. You know, I thought we would be seeing more of Arya's like a ninja side where that just slides out in a dark shadowy hallway or something. And we're like, oh my God, who's she going for? And then it turns out to be him.
Yeah, I mean, I still think I think this was more Sansa's moment than anything. Like, obviously, he had hurt her the most. So I think it was better that it was, you know, as Arya says later, you know, she was just the executioner, you know, that this was Sansa's revenge to take for herself and for her family, you know, as the kind of default lady of Winterfell to help avenge her mother or their father and all these things. So I'm glad that it was more of this, how to play this, you know, this literal Game of Thrones, that it was Sansa's plan. And I kind of wish though that there had been more, you know, little alluding scenes of the three of them kind of meet, like her, Bran and Arya meeting together, or Bran kind of giving Arya a nod, you know, something to show that they were in this together. That would have made more sense to me. But
yeah, whatever. I agree. But I do like what you said about how this was like such a great way for it to go down, especially that trial in front of witnesses to have, you know, I think it made sense to everyone there where Littlefinger's trying to do everything in the shadows. And if Arya and Sansa had taken care of him in the shadows, it just would have sort of, you know, played in almost to his like kind of chaos thing of, you know, now who would trust, you know, that they had legitimate reasons to murder him? Is Sansa really trying just to get, you know, Jon's, whatever we want to call it, a royal title or something like that? So I totally agree with you. This was like a great way for it to go down, and it was satisfying.
Yeah, you really got to see his true colors in the end too. You know.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I was just gonna say when he drops to his knees to like beg, and then that's just, you know, and then the camera changes to his point of view, and Arya steps up. Oh,
it was kind of hard to watch, like, you know, because you never, you know, you wanted him in the end to take. He literally took death sitting down, like, or kneeling, whatever. You know.
Yeah.
So many of the other characters, like, it was hard to see him on his knees begging like that. Is kind of, you know, it makes you cringe a little, like, dude, you know, toughen up a little bit. Like, there's nothing you can do. At least face your doom with a sense of, you know, bravery. But that's just not him. So yeah, it was all good. That was probably like one of my favorite scenes in the whole episode.
Were you like I was punching the sofa and screaming, "Take his face, Arya"?
No, I'm sure she will, you know, add it to her bag of faces. But yeah, the fact that she slashed his throat, I was like, cool. She's probably gonna wear him at some point. Maybe a bit of trickery for Cersei or something. I hope she'll, you know, maybe she'll just keep it. Maybe we'll like keep him as a souvenir. I don't know. She's kind of creepy and weird, just as Sansa says later, you know.
Yeah, which was another like cool moment between them. Yeah, this just even bringing that up makes me think of how right you are. Like, I wish we had seen more of them plotting this together, just so we understood it, because it did seem like such a bad fake out for the past couple episodes. You know, I think that was kind of our reaction last week, was like, well, if it didn't happen now, if it wasn't revealed now that Sansa and Arya were working together, then it seems like a, you know, I don't know, just a bad idea. But
yeah, I mean, I think there was still legit tension between them. Like, there was still, like, all of that was real. But then I think when Sansa realized what was really happening, yeah, I wish there was a scene where they had kind of all three met together to kind of be like, look, put our differences aside. Like, this is what we have to do. And we need to get rid of him, kind of thing.
Actually, I like the way you said that. That's what I wanted. I wanted a scene of seeing Sansa some way to so that we could understand, like, you know, this was Sansa's moment and she figured it out, that Littlefinger was manipulating her again. Yeah, that would have been great.
Yeah, Sansa's the best.
Yeah, exactly. Jon should marry her. We'll get to that.
Stop it.
Should we jump to Jaime now? You have more to say about Jaime.
Yeah. So poor Jaime, right? Like, she's so mean to him. Like, why does he love her so much? Like, she said, "You're the stupidest Lannister." I'm like, yo, like, he knows that. You don't have to say that. Jesus. Yeah, this part I think was the most anxiety, because I don't know, because the scene with Tyrion in the mountain too, I was like, she could kill him in an instant, but she doesn't, which is kind of telling to her character too, of like, she, as much as she says she hates him, you know, they're still family, whatever. But when I was never definitely more
afraid for Jaime.
Me too. That's why, because I was like, I never thought it would come that close. And I don't think he did either. And obviously nothing happens. He just leaves, but still it was like, dude, like, what a gut punch for Jaime, of like everything that he's had to go through, every, you know, rumor and snide comment and all these things of being with Cersei. And when he steps one toe out of line to do the right thing, to be a good person, she threatens to kill him. Like, it was just really, I felt really, really bad for him. Like, how crushing is that? But it also does lend a lot of credence to my theory that ultimately, and everyone's theory, that Jaime will be the one to kill her. Because obviously now he's leaving, he's left, he's gonna be a good guy and try to fight the dead stuff. And she obviously has no intention or really doesn't care. So I feel really bad. But there was a shot when he's leaving about the hand thing. Yeah. Where he puts the glove over his hand. And I was like, that's kind of weird. Like, maybe it was the setup to show about the snow on the glove. But I was like, why on that? Like, why couldn't it be on his sword or like on his armor? Right. So, like, why on the hand specifically?
No, I thought the same thing. And was I crazy for thinking that was a different hand? I know earlier in the season when there's the scene of the two of them having sex that he has just taken his hand off when she comes into the room. And so I don't really remember like but I don't know if it was the same one. Okay.
Yeah, I think
because I know when it was
ones.
when he first got it was like bright gold.
Yeah.
And
so maybe it's just
that one was definitely,
I don't know.
I wondered if this was like kind of the, going off to battle hand or something. Yeah, I agree. That was an interesting shot. I wonder what they're trying to communicate, or if we're just reading too much into it.
Yeah, probably that.
Just the snow.
I know. But yeah, so snow in King's Landing though is very important.
Yeah, and there's long been that suspicion of Bran's vision where there are ashes falling around the stupid sword chair, that possibly that's just snow, and the
Dany has a vision quite similar though, and it is snow.
Yeah.
In the House of the Undying. And that's how it was kind of, that it was like this, there's snow falling over the chair, the stupid sword chair, and then it like zooms to the wall and there's that blue rose in the wall. That was like one of the major things about L plus R plus J. That was one of the major backups of that theory, is that she prophesized or whatever, had a vision about Jon, because obviously the wall with the blue rose in it means Jon. So the fact that they both had a similar vision is disconcerting.
What do you mean? Obviously, the blue rose in the wall.
So there. Come on, Todd. In the story of how Lyanna Stark and Rhaegar Targaryen met, they was at a tournament. I don't remember the name of it. It's a very famous tournament, right? And so he gives her. It's like the Queen of Beauty, and he should give it to his wife, Elia Martell, a crown of blue roses. There's a name for them, but he gives it to Lyanna Stark, and that's like the start of their sort of romance.
Right. I believe it's, am I wrong? I believe it's called the Winter Rose.
Yes.
Maybe.
Winter Rose. Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah. Wow.
There we go.
I'm a dum-dum. I never saw that in Dany's dream. I don't want to cut you short on any Jaime thoughts that you have. But should we move?
Yeah, I mean,
back to Winterfell.
Yeah, the only thing I want to say about Jaime too is like, really, this was the last testament of his character. Like, he's always been the best of them in a sense. Like, whatever the sister stuff aside, that he's always been a good, honorable man, and has tried really hard to be a good, honorable man. And the fact that he was willing to abandon this woman that he loves, his family, his last remaining family, basically, besides Tyrion, to go and be a good guy, is really like, this is the end of his arc of being, not that he'll die or anything, but I just mean like that he is finally solidified himself as one of the good guys, and he carries a Valyrian steel sword with him, so that's also very important.
Well, and it's kind of like Olenna said to him earlier, like, are you that far gone, and he confirms like he's that far gone in love with Cersei. But I think once, it's kind of like he hit bottom, he acknowledged that he was powerless to fight his demons without a higher power, and then he saw that higher power, that white, and it scared the shit out of him, and it like brought him to the light. And so one thing I really did love about this episode is all the Lannister sibling stuff, which is, I just think it's so cool to see how well they've laid these characters out over 7 seasons, and the directions they've gone in, where it's like maybe only Tyrion and Jaime changed. Cersei certainly went from like bad to worse, but but it's just, I don't know, it's very cool to me to see what a good job those actors have done, and how well that's been written. So,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'm with you. Plus now there's still hope for him and Brienne, because Tormund might not be around. But anyway,
Tormund and Brienne forever.
So then back up in Winterfell, Sam has taken the express road from Citadel across all damn Westeros. He gets to Winterfell and like, who knows, the time warp thing. And finally meets with Bran, which obviously I loved everything about it. I assume this was another place where your jaw was on the floor, even though we viewers had put this information together already. It was really cool to watch these two characters fit the two sides of their information together.
Yeah, it was great. It was really cool. And
how did you feel about the brand visions and like the, I mean, whatever we want to call them?
I mean, that's just kind of what he does now as a three-eyed raven. So, and I think too, I just really like that. I mean, like I said this last episode too, with the the Magnificent Seven. Like, this is such a cool season for bringing characters who we haven't seen together in a long time or who've never been together, like together. And so I love that finally Sam and Bran, because it was like that was like season 2 or 3 that he helped them get, like that was a long time ago. So this was really cool. And it was, I think this was the least creepy that Bran has been. And I think it was really cute. All the scenes with Sam, like it was such a good like comedic little break of like where he goes, I became the three-eyed raven. And Sam's like, oh, like you say that like when like your grandmother says like, and then I did it. And you're like, oh, that's nice, Nana. Like, I don't know what you're talking about.
That actor was just like the perfect person to deliver the comedic beat there, rather than like Arya and Sansa just kind of being concerned about their little brother, you know? It was great to see Sam have that moment of like, oh, okay, great.
What is that? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? So, and it's funny, like the funniest thing about the whole three-eyed raven thing is how just honest Bran is about it. Like, it's not like something happened to me. It was like, I am a three-eyed raven and I see past and present and I see everything now. And people are like, all right, great, cool.
That was great. Finally, he should have been straightforward in that moment. That was great. It was also cool. They kind of confirmed his power, which is he can see everything in the past, what's going on in the present. And there was this long pause, and I was sure he was going to say, and what's going to happen. But because he didn't, it clarified that vision from the first episode of the season when he sees the dead marching on the wall. That was presently happening. You know, that wasn't like a far future vision or anything like that. So, and I'll take a short tangent here because you mentioned the Magnificent Seven. And one of the things I really liked about, last week's episode, one of the really cool things was watching those guys marching beyond the wall kind of pair up and have little, character enhancing conversations. And we got a little bit of that as everybody marched into the dragon pit. And I really liked that. I really liked those moments between Pod and Tyrion, and then between Bronn and Tyrion, and then between the Hound and Brienne. And I don't know, that was just, I felt a good stage setting for the episode. Sorry. So I'll tangent back to Sam in Winterfell. That was one of those things where I knew, obviously we knew like they're going to put the pieces together. At least I hope they would. And when Sam's face was so shocked, when Bran said, no, he's a sand, that's what they call bastards. And it cuts to Sam's face with this reaction. I got chills. I was like, yes, he's going to confirm it. It's amazing.
Yeah. No, and then I loved. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm just too excited.
And then I loved. I mean, we could maybe pick nits on like how quickly Bran could just summon that vision from that time, but I really loved the look that they gave to Rhaegar, and that he looks just like Viserys. With that hairstyle.
Yeah,
that was a very
kind of
cool.
Mad about that.
Oh, really? Kind of a triggering moment of,
Yeah, and it was mostly just like an aesthetics thing, like that he kind of looked too much like Viserys, but because in the books he has like longer hair, like Dany, like more like shoulder length hair and not like chin length. But but no, it was cool that we got to see him for the very first time. And I think Taylor talked about this last episode or 2 episodes ago. Like, he's one of those characters that we only know from secondhand accounts.
Right.
Like, we only know from people talking about him. Like, even Dany never met him. Like, she was born after he was dead. And so it was really neat to finally see him, and obviously see Lyanna, who we'd seen in the previous vision. And it was really beautiful. I think for a long time, R plus L plus J fans, like this was the moment. Like when last season, when we figured out, Jon was Lyanna's son, like that was great. But this was the end all be all of like, they weren't this wasn't a tragic love story. I mean, it was a tragic love story in the sense that they both died, but that it wasn't, you know, that they really honestly loved each other and wanted to have a life together. And that almost in the sense that Robert and Ned were the bad guys in this. And that's kind of shocking.
Right. Yeah, I loved that Bran confirmed that. Like, Robert's rebellion was built on a lie. And it's like, boom.
Yeah. It's solid.
The good guys are the bad guys.
Yeah. But it was really, I mean, and I'm glad that it was like the two of them, like that it was Sam and Bran, both of these two sort of, I would say, stand-ins for George R.R. Martin himself, of like the kind of storytellers of the world, that they can both confirm that this is real. Like, it's not just one person has the information. Now it's going to be a bunch of people. And it was kind of like, it was sort of, it was cool. Like, I can't believe we're finally at this point where we can definitively say, oh, okay. And also, though, the other major thing, and because we've talked about this a lot, there's like a big missing character from the books that we never got to see, and that's Aegon Targaryen, little Aegon Targaryen. So the fact that they are saying that that is Jon is only slightly annoying, but also that it just makes a lot more sense. Like, why introduce this other character that might not even have any bearing in the books because we're not sure, just to have him be Aegon instead. That's really cool.
Yeah, that's cool. You know, it's funny. I didn't put that together, that they were just taking, you know, little Aegon's name and giving it to Jon. But I did think it was cool that they showed her saying the name, which even a couple episodes I said to you something about they were going to call Jon Jaehaerys, because there was this like Reddit thread where people had like slowed that
like lip read her
down. They were lip reading. They were like, we're pretty sure it's Jaehaerys, and then they, of course, they'd like traced the lineage of that name through A World of Ice and Fire and all that stuff. So what a good fake out too, because you know, there have been a bunch of things this season that really feel like they are writing what the fans predicted, you know, when it's kind of hard to tell whether that's fan service or the fans were just really good at guessing what was going to happen. So it was kind of an audible there. They went Aegon.
And I like it too. Aegon, one of the most famous Aegon Targaryens is the Dragon Knight, is from Dunk and Egg. And he was like a really good guy and really handsome and a good fighter and just like a good human. So it's hopefully another call too, of like that not all Targaryens are crazy and weird and you know, like bad people, that there were some really shiny examples of them, and that Jon and Dany both are also shining examples of being Targaryens.
It's kind of starting to seem like there's only one bad Targaryen.
There were some other really nasty ones, like thousands of years ago. Like their lineage is really, really long, obviously. But yeah, there were some other ones that were like not cool, and that like were really like Maester Aemon, also a secret Targaryen, but not so secret. He talked like he had one brother who was also like really weird, and he had like an uncle who was like super mean. Like there's some, that's what you get when you have incest in your lineage. You know, some people go crazy. So, well,
now that you've said that,
great. Yeah, let's talk about incest.
The shipping on the ship.
Shipping on the ship.
Could not believe that it was like hard cut to Jon knocking on the door. Like, I almost thought, like, is this part of the vision?
Yeah.
And then no, it's an aunt seducing her young nephew.
I feel like he is seducing her. But and they're the same age also. They're essentially the same age. He's maybe like a year older than her. Anyways,
that's cool.
Yeah, it's cool.
Jaw on the floor, or was this an expected thing?
I didn't know. I mean, I liked their really nice, you know, intimate conversation at the dragon pit when they're waiting for Tyrion to come back. And especially talking about that she can't have kids. I actually was reading, I think it was on Bustle this week, about that, of if I may digress. The whole thing about she can't have kids. So it was, if you've been watching this whole time, read the books, you know that she was pregnant with Drogo's child, Drogo's son. He was the horse that would mount the world, or whatever, this another prince that was promised type character. And so then They go to this town as they're crossing the Great Grass Sea to sail to Westeros, because he was like, I'm gonna go and like I'm gonna capture this kingdom for our son, whatever. So they go to this town, and they're the Dothraki are raping and pillaging, and so she saves this woman, this witch woman, Miri some another name.
Mazdur.
Yes, and so the other dude gets mad and like slices Drago, and he suffers like this, ending wound. So that the witch lady gives Dany all this stuff of like only blood can pay for blood, so they slaughter the horse, and then she's like, don't come in here, but it was all a trick, right? So then the son died, Drago was a vegetable, and so then the woman basically tells her, she gives her like this prophecy, I would have to look it up the exact words, but basically what it says is like, Dany asks, when will Drago come back to me? And she says, when the moon shines in the day, when the sea boils, all these like impossible things, basically.
Right.
Then
when the sun rises in the west and the
when the sun rises in the west.
The sun sets
yeah. Then you will bear children, or then he will come back to you, something to that effect. So I was reading of this theory that she never explicitly said like you can't have kids. Like it was just that you will not be able to have kids until Drago returns. But obviously Drago is dead. And so the theory is, this sounds, as a Khaleesi fan theory as myself, this sounds totally plausible, of that it was more like when a true love, like a real love comes again, will you be able to have kids? So obviously she had slept with Dario Naharis, not really Jorah, but that until Jon, she had never really loved someone like she loved Drago. So she could still totally have kids if that theory proves to be true, of that it was more once a earth-shattering love comes again, then you can have kids.
Right.
So they're definitely getting a head start on the kid making.
I wrote one other question in here about that when it cuts away and there's wow.
The dogs don't want to talk about incest. They really don't want me to talk about it.
Copy that. Wow. All right. The Tyrion
it's
thing.
Fine. They're the same age, dogs.
Yeah. They only share like 12% of the same DNA. Don't worry.
Yeah. And she didn't even know her brother. Like, it's fine.
It cuts away to Tyrion, and he's somewhere like outside the door, so presumably he has heard or seen Jon enter the room or something.
Such a creeper.
It was very creepy, and it wasn't like out of character or something, but I think I just felt it wasn't so much the ickiness of it as the Jorah thing too. Like, does everyone who follows Dany have to also be in love with her? I mean, not that that's not an unreal thing, like her charisma kind of makes that happen,
Yeah, I mean, she's beautiful and smart and strong, and like, why wouldn't you fall in love with her, really?
I just felt like it felt unnecessary or something to me, but I don't know. It was in character, so I can't like really complain about what it was.
Yeah, Peter and I were talking like, why did he seem sad? Like,
right? Yeah, exactly that.
Sure. And I think that he really I think it's just that of like, Tyrion really likes Jon, and it seems like every other man that Dany has been with has suffered a terrible fate, or that he doesn't want either of them to get hurt, or he doesn't want either of them to kind of, lose sight of things. But it was kind of, I thought it was Jorah at first. I was like, poor Jorah. Sorry, sort of friend zone, but I don't really know why Tyrion was there. I think someone pointed out too of that Jorah's talk with Jon in the previous episode of like, no, pass Longclaw onto your children, was kind of like his little like stamp of approval of like, if those children happen to be Daenerys's, like, there you go.
Yeah. I would have thought Tyrion kind of endorsed it too. I
don't know.
Anyway, we might as well get to this ending.
Yeah. Okay.
I loved the view of Eastwatch. That they finally gave us this view of this like really sheer cliff that it is built on the side of, and then how the wall is just right there out to the edge of the sea. Yeah.
And when we saw it on the map in the opening, I was like, oh shit. Like something important is gonna happen, because they kept saying, like, they kept showing Old Town like in the opening for like 3 episodes, even after Sam left, and I'm like, this is dumb. And then when they showed Eastwatch, it was like, oh, okay, what, that must be important if they've added it at the very end. Like, oh my god, okay.
Yeah. It was I mean, I don't know how to even start us here, because
I was just really stoked that Taylor finally got his way.
It's
not the whole wall, but then I was like, oh, Taylor's gonna be so happy.
Well, I mean, this is like a thing, you know, I think one of us sort of floated that last week about like, well, now they've got this dragon, they can melt the wall. And didn't we have a brief discussion over whether it would breathe fire or what would happen? And
I think we did. And obviously it does breathe fire, it breathes blue flame, which is pretty sick.
Yeah. I don't know what I thought would happen when they saw the dead come out of the woods. I thought, oh, you know, they could seriously just fade out right now. You know, or have like the POV shot from the dead looking up at Tormund and Beric, and it's like roll credits, you know. And I
knew as soon as they were there, as soon as the captain rolled out, I was like, this shit's coming down, because you didn't see the Night King, and Peter's like, where is he?
Exactly.
Isn't he right there? You go, no, that's his general. And I'm like, he's gonna fucking come riding in on this dragon and blow this stuff up. And I thought maybe that the last shot would be very similar to one other, when Dany birthed the dragons, and the last shot was like the dragon roaring. I thought it may be that we would just see the dragon and the Night King flying in, and it would roar, blow flames, and that would be cut. Right. But yeah, this made more sense in pacing wise, of like, now that they're coming in, that they can cross over, like that's what the war has officially begun. So
yeah. Cool. Well, I mean, like you said, that Taylor has that is really what he has pushed for this whole season. He's really hoped that like this episode, the wall would come down, and then all next season would be really the war of the living and the dead.
Yeah.
It seemed like a terrible way for Tormund and Beric to go.
I mean, if they did their bodies, like
I'm with you on that. Like, I think that last shot of them may have been supposed to indicate that they were on the part of the wall that did not fall.
Yeah.
And they were watching the wall fall, but it was shot from this weird way of like, they were looking to the right of the screen, and then it cuts back. And if they were on the right side of if they were on the left side of the wall looking to the right, that was the side that crumbled into the sea. And I just felt like,
I thought it was opposite. I thought they would have been on the side opposite the sea.
Well, and if they were on the back side of the wall running down the stairs, that would make sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's because we saw some dudes like falling off, and so the stair hitting the stairs and stuff. So I think too, it's just a good delivery system of, to have characters that we recognize coming to tell them like shit is happening, like it's going down. And I think too, just
how can they possibly make it back before that dragon? Like they're, this is
sneakily.
This is going to be scary. I wonder if season 8 just opens with them hauling ass through the woods.
Yeah, I think so. I just think
like a real zombie movie, like where they are just trying to outrun the dead.
I just think Beric and Tormund just have more than Yara and the Greyjoys. Like, I think they still have such a big role to play, especially Beric, because we still don't know who the prince was promised and all this stuff. Yeah. So yeah. Oh, what we forgot to talk about though?
What's that?
This reminded me, because Beric and Tormund, of the friggin' hound's speech to the mountain.
Ooh, yeah. Well, let me put a pin in that. Okay. I just wanted to add one thing about Beric was just to back you up on that. There's more to come from them. Was totally because of what Beric said in the last episode, where he it says to Jon, "It may be up to us to go after, to kill the Night King. That may be our purpose on Earth, why we were brought back."
Right.
So yeah, just
that's so true. Okay, but also, I love that actor's voice. He has a James Mason sort of character voice about him. Like, I just love listening to him. Like, so I hope he's not dead.
Beric.
Yeah, Beric.
Yeah. So we get a muted Clegane bowl.
It was barely. It was just like a Clegane tea party. Like, they had a little chit chat, and then he bailed. But it was cool, and it was, that it was. I think it goes to show a lot of the Hound's growth too. Like the previous Hound would have just, been super mean and tried to attack him, but he knew he has a bigger purpose now, and that that the Mountain's time will come, and he has kind of pointed the finger into pointed the bat into the right field of like, I'm coming for you. It's not today, but I'm still coming. Don't forget. So I was happy for him.
Yeah. Yeah, there were a lot of grudges kind of like just like sort of erupting in that moment. That was I wrote down, why is Theon here, before any of that happened, and then the Hound comes out and confronts the Mountain, and then a moment later, like Euron like interrupts the actual business to like just antagonize Theon. And I was like, come on, guys.
Typical.
Leave all of these people at home. Anyway, so I did not say this at the top of our episode, but the original plan was for you and I to talk like 30 minutes. Taylor's traveling, and then I would talk to Taylor, and I would edit these two conversations together. So it was like half with you and half with Taylor. You and I've talked almost an hour.
Oh my God, how time flies! I didn't even realize. Taylor, I'm sorry.
And you did say that Peter was like, yeah, no way, it'll just be 30 minutes. And in the meantime, Taylor has texted me to tell me he did watch it on the plane, and he said, well, his first text was just, holy shit.
Oh my God.
So obviously I will still talk to him tomorrow, but we may put this out as 2 different episodes. So listeners may not be able to hear all of this like together. So I'll ask you, like, what do you think? Like, do you have any quick predictions for what happens in season 8, or what we see right off the bat?
Some fighting, probably. Well, probably,
I know. What else can we say?
Yeah. Right off the bat, preparing to go to war. All the major players on the board kind of finally coming together. Save for Cersei, she'll like hide out in King's Landing, I suppose. And yeah, I just anticipate like there's just going to be a lot of battles, a lot of stuff. Cersei's gonna die. Like I thought she was gonna die this episode, and the fact that she didn't, she's definitely gonna die. I think Dany's gonna get pregnant. That's it. I think the Night King will die, and that Dany will roast him alive, and that her dragon will eat him. I hope.
I'll tell you one thing that I binged on a bunch of like YouTube fan theory stuff today, and tweeted a lot of them out through the Find Us There account, which we'll plug at the end. But
I know I was looking at some of them.
So one of them was about like, does Daenerys is there a bigger role for her to play? And I really like this one. Like maybe she doesn't actually become the queen of the 7 kingdoms, because maybe, maybe she finds that her actual reason for being is something sort of bigger in the the Great War. And I really like that idea, because it sort of will retroactively justify her talking about how much she deserves this throne for 7 years, which was the sticking point for me as a fan, like just never liking her. Like, get over it, woman. Like this, this, just come on. You have not that I ever thought like, oh, well, she'll serve this bigger purpose in the Great War, but I thought, no, you're the liberator. You're not the queen, but,
well, I'm still team Dany for her being the princess that was promised. And so I think that falls into that, like that she is the only one who can defeat the Night King. Yeah.
Well, and they've sown the seeds last week when Tyrion talks about the succession order and brings up, the ways that like the Ironborn do it in a different way. And in the Free Cities, they do it this way. And so that's already out there of, maybe she becomes the ruler of Westeros, but it's not exactly the queen of the 7 kingdoms, or, maybe there's a sort of way that they satisfy both of us. She is Azor Ahai and she is the ruler, but she is neither, not really the queen on the stupid sword chair.
Stupid sword chair.
Yes. That said, now we're in the plug your work section, our goodbye section. And you have a brand new Fan Theories podcast coming out sometime this week. I will talk to you about the schedule after we stop recording. But what is it about?
So it is about, it's a fall movie preview. This actually was your idea, Todd. And so there was so many good movies coming out in the fall/winter. So we wanted to talk about at least 4 big sort of geeky ones. And that's Thor Ragnarok, Blade Runner 2049, The Last Jedi, and Justice League. So
nice.
Yeah, and there was a lot of really good theories. This episode runs a little bit differently because we just wanted to go, property by property instead of our usual format. So we talked a lot of really good ones, to be honest.
That's awesome. I mean, I have not actually listened to it yet. You sent it to me earlier today. I haven't listened, so I will listen after we're done recording, and I'm sure it's incredible, and I can't wait. It sounds cool. So that will come out this week. And where can people find you on Twitter and Instagram and stuff like that?
You can find me at that Emily Kelly. Easy.
Yes, and you should do that, and you should spell Kelly with an E before the L's and an E after the L's.
Yes. EY.
Just
to make it complicated.
Exactly.
My ancestors were like, we got to make this really complicated. We don't want to be like those other Kellys. We have to be different from the Kellys.
I know. It's the Irish.
we
end on the Irish as we started on the Irish. And people who are listening to this can find fan theories and also this podcast Wednesday in Westeros at findusthere.org. And you can also search for these podcasts on Stitcher, on iTunes, on Google Play, on Podbean, on SoundCloud. You will find us in all those places, and you will find us on social media at Find Us There. Until I talk to you again, Emily, 7 blessings.
7 blessings to you.